parents used to have more than one child.
Mhm.
And then sometimes even one child was designated the caregiver and everyone else supported that person,
Mhm.
right? These days we don't have that many options,
Yeah.
right? And we're so spread apart that sometimes one person becomes the de facto caregiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
I subscribe to the airline industry's adage, when there's sudden loss of cabin pressure, please put your mask on before you put someone else's on.
Yeah.
If you pass out, you can't help anybody else. To the
Yeah.
best of your ability, take care of yourself, right?
Mhm.
Caregivers are more prone to having severe health issues, severe depression. They also experience isolation because they can't go outside because they're always taking care of the family member, especially
Yeah.
in Alzheimer's and dementia. Um, it's a 24-hour job.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. Oh, why can't you just leave mom at home for 10 minutes or whatever it is? Go to the store, come back. Because she might turn on the stove.
Yeah.
Because she might wander. She
Yeah.
might do X, Y, and Z. I can't even sleep at night because I'm afraid there's going to open the door and walk away. One
Right.
thing that's preserved in dementia is your semantic memory. Semantic memory is like muscle memory, right? That's why people can get in the cars, start the car, drive off, but then forget to come back,
Yeah.
right? Or forget the route back home.
Welcome, soulmates. This is your boy Chill, and I'm here with my podcast partner, Darren D.B. Bryant, my wonder twin, and we welcome you to another edition of the Soul of a Man podcast. And we're pleased tonight to be joined by one of my guys back from New York, and we've known each other for several years. And proud to have him, happy to have him on with us tonight. I'm gonna read his full
Oh my
name.
gosh.
Dr. Nana Yaw Adu-Sarkodie.
I'm Paul. Uh-huh.
Adu-Sarkodie. We're glad
Thank
to
you.
have you, bro.
Thank
Good
you.
to
Thank you
have
so
you.
much.
Good to have you. So let me read through some of Doc's background. Dr. Sarkodie is a clinical geriatrician and family medicine physician with expertise in medical care of older adults. His clinical interests include dementia care and caregiver well-being. We don't talk about that much. Care for the actual caregiver. So we're going to hear about some of that tonight. He has served as a medical director of the VA Maryland's home-based primary care program, and most recently served as the deputy director for the Geriatrics and Extended Care Clinical Center at VA Maryland Healthcare System. He has taught medical students, medical and nurse practitioner residents, and geriatric fellows on geriatric care. And it remind me, Doc, I believe that's at Morgan State at this point, correct?
Well, that was still within the VA. I used to teach at Morgan, but I did epidemiology there. I can't get the word out.
Got it. Great. Uh, Dr. Sarkodie holds a master's in public health from Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health and an MD from Ross University School of Medicine. Completed both his residency in family medicine and his fellowship in geriatrics at the Louisiana State Health Science Center in New Orleans. Inspired by his late grandmother, who was a nurse, Dr. Adu-Sarkodie chose family medicine and geriatrics specialty because he found that older adult populations have a tremendous amount of insight and wisdom, love to chat, and often present with complex health concerns that require the coordination of multidisciplinary teams to achieve successful health outcomes. So again, my brother, we are glad to have you here. As I've spoken with you as we were coming together with the Soul of Man podcast, our goal and mission is to really encourage our followers to live a full and holistic life as they move into the second half of their lives or move through the second half of their lives. So we're thrilled to have you on to talk to us about geriatrics medicine and what we need to be looking at and focus on and get some better understanding about it. So
Sure.
welcome.
And I want to just say thank you so much for the invitation. I always relish the opportunity to kind of speak about my profession and my specialty in particular, because we're small but mighty. A lot of people don't recognize that they need us until they're in our age group, and sometimes they seek us out. Sometimes their doctors seek us out. So I'm really privileged to be able to kind of talk about geriatrics in general, and just talk about some other things that you may have questions about.
Yes. Yeah.
So Doc, I would say this. I think a lot of our listeners, I'd say the vast majority, either have aging parents, grandparents, something along those lines, who probably fall within that demographic or that age group.
Mm-hmm.
I know me personally, my mother's, and she's probably going to kill me for saying her age, is 79.
She's young.
She's young.
Okay.
Which is good to know. Her brother is 91, and he's still painting and cutting grass and doing everything at that age.
Wow.
And then my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, is 96.
Wow.
Actually, I'm sorry, she just turned 97.
Awesome.
And she's still doing her thing and
Mm-hmm.
not as well physically anymore, but her brain and her mind is just as sharp as it's always been.
That's what we like. That's what we like.
I am looking forward to having this conversation and understanding what you consider from an age standpoint, the
Mm-hmm.
geriatric space. And I need to know how close Chill and I are to it as well.
So just some definitions to, I guess, kind of start off with. So that you probably heard gerontology, and then there's also geriatrics.
Okay.
So gerontology is really the science of aging. Like, if you're a clinical scientist, you're studying how aging impacts people, how we age in particular. Gerontologists will talk about things like theories on how we age. So there are many prevailing theories. One would be like the telomerase theory. Your telomeres are kind of like the ends of your DNA strands. And as they shorten, they kind of shorten your lifespan also, something like that. There's a mitochondrial decay theory. There's an antioxidant theory as well. As you walk around through your life and you go through your day-to-day, you're collecting free radicals. Free radicals are oxidizers pretty much. And what they do is, for lack of a better term, they rust your body, or they age your body that way, right? Mm-hmm. There's solar radiation as well. Solar radiation, you're walking through the streets, going about your day. The sun is beating down on you. It weathers your face, weathers your skin, makes you look a lot older than you would be if you were not. So a lot of different theories. As we get older as well, the body goes through some its own physiologic changes too. So I just was having a conversation with my staff this afternoon, and I gave the analogy: your body is pretty much like a car, right? They say that once you drive the car off the lot, it's already starting to depreciate. Once you come out your mother's womb, your body's already depreciating, right? So you have a trajectory. You're younger, you start gaining your skills, your motor skills, your cognitive skills, your ability to read and write, and then you become this child, and then you keep peaking, going up. You become an adult or a young adult. You go to work. You collect more skills, more experiences. But as you're doing all that, you're also accumulating a lot of damage from the environment. It could be because you're not eating right. It could be because you're not exercising. It could just be the environment. There's a lot of ambient pollution that is already present in the air. Car pollution. If you live in Harlem or some other place like that where there's a lot of bus depots, you're breathing all those different things in. And then if you have a medical illness on top of all that, that gets exacerbated too. So this is your young adults, you're in your 30s, your 40s, you're still growing, you're still accumulating all these things as you grow older. And then as you start getting into your 50s and 60s, your body is starting to kind of change. It's slowing down, right? And then you're not able to kind of clear all these contaminants as well as you used to. How many times have you said to yourself, man, back in my 20s, I could drink X, Y, and Z and not feel it the next day. Now you have one or two drinks and it's, I can't even get up in the morning, right? So the same concept with the car. You need to go in for your regularly scheduled checkups, 30,000 miles, 5,000 miles, whatever it is. Same thing with your body. And your checkups are your annual visit to your doctor. Mm-hmm. And then let's say every 6 months, with a dentist. and any other intermediate specialist that you may need to see, a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, a endocrinologist, etc., depending on what your disease state is. So essentially, the things you do now in your younger ages, if you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, they all kind of catch up with you towards your later ages, right? Because now your body's kind of cooling down, it's relaxing, it's slowing up a little bit, especially if you don't do all the things you're doing before. So if you're not exercising, you're not eating right, you're not drinking plenty of water, you're not avoiding smoking, you're not avoiding drinking to some extent, there's just so many things that your genetics plays a part in, but then there's other things that you yourself do to kind of contribute to any issues that you may develop later on. So geriatrics is the medical side of aging and how we kind of impact that. So all the medical issues that may be related to aging, that's what the geriatrician kind of focuses on. So there's a series of what we call geriatric syndromes, like incontinence, depression, delirium, dementia. These are things that are common in this age group, and we focus a lot on these things. And for me, I think the main reason why I went to geriatrics is that, a lot of people want to go to pediatrics because the kids are so cute. But I think we neglect a lot of our older adults in our society. Yeah. And we want to be able to kind of give that person the best quality of life in their twilight years as possible. And then also really get them ready or get them prepared for the eventuality that we will all face, which is death or dying. Mm-hmm. And I think that is kind of like at least in my culture, we're not really afraid of death. We kind of not necessarily embrace it, but we welcome it to some degree, because that just means you become an ancestor and then you can move on forward and then you can pass that down to someone else. Mm-hmm. The way my name is so long is because I'm carrying on my grandfather's name. And so as long as your name survives, you don't necessarily, die. Right. So the body is just a shell. The soul is what's really important. And how you live your life throughout that time that you're infancy, throughout adulthood, is what matters.
So true that people just with between advancements in medicine, technology, and I guess very soon, if not already, AI, mm-hmm. Is it true people are living longer?
Oh, people are living longer, absolutely, 100%, as compared to, the 1940s. Penicillin is one of the greatest inventions that we've had because it changed the paradigm from death due to infectious disease to death due to chronic illness, right? So again, that weathering effect. If you have a Honda, that engine is going to last at least 200,000 miles, right? But if you didn't have the right parts, if you didn't have the right synthetic oil, then your life expectancy or that lifespan for that car would be a lot shorter. So infectious disease was killing us a lot back in those days. The advent of antibiotics, antivirals, advanced medicine now transition that from infectious disease to chronic diseases. Heart disease is still the number one killer of everyone, men and women, and especially us who are African Americans also. Right. Got it. And then number two is stratified between breast cancer, colon cancer. Number three is actually colon cancer. And then something that we all don't even think about too is accidents. Right. Accidents also are top 10 leading causes of death in people.
So again, heart, mm-hmm. colon,
lung,
okay,
breast, mm-hmm.
and breast. Got it.
And speaking of which, it is that we'd be remiss to say this or not to say this, but it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Absolutely.
So we need to encourage all of our ladies, especially our sisters, to please go out and get your examination.
And it's also Menopause Awareness Month also. So we also have to support our wives, sisters, mothers who are going through the changes as well.
Right. Yeah. We just came off of the month of September was colon cancer awareness. And we've gone out to our followers and really encourage them to make sure that they get examined. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we've noticed just in talking to brothers specifically, just a lot of reluctance in that continuing maintenance and care. And so I'm about to turn 60. So I'm coming up on. I had my first colonoscopy at 50,
Mhm.
and there were no real issues. Some polyps that were found, but benign. And so they gave me clearance for another 10 years.
Yes.
And so I'm coming up on the point where it literally is scheduled now. And again, encouraging the followers to make sure they get those general
Checkups. Yeah,
those checkups.
absolutely. And interestingly enough, September was also perimenopausal awareness month. So again, the changes, you have pre-menopause and then into October, which is menopause awareness month. And speaking of colon cancer, I'm 3 years delayed on my colonoscopy, to be honest with you. But I
Mhm.
recently just sent in my Cologuard. So we have options. You can send in the poop through the
Uh-huh.
mail to get analyzed, and then I'm eventually going to get the colonoscopy anyway. But I'm
Yeah.
just kind of going through the steps to see, what turns up what. So absolutely, we want to make sure we take care of ourselves and make sure we go for all our regularly scheduled checkups and tune-ups. Yeah.
I'm not even sure if most people even know that that's an option.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Cologuard is really good for folks who are low risk for colon cancer, no family history at all. I think for me personally, um, it's really, there's really no excuse, to be honest.
Mhm.
I think my doctor scheduled it, and I just didn't make the appointment. So they were like, you know what, we're gonna send this thing in the mail. It just showed up. I said, oh look, look what's here. So I just did it, added the solution, closed it up, and then sent it through the mail. And we should probably get results in like the next couple of weeks or so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Good.
So there was
Good.
one other thing, the one thing that you said, well, several things you said were very interesting, but the one that kind of struck a chord with me as we start to kind of look at our, growing following. It's, we had an intention of a certain age group, but it actually ended up being a little younger than what we thought it was going to be in terms of demographics. And you mentioned that how you live your life during your younger years will largely determine how you live your life in your older years.
Yeah.
So if you did a lot of drinking, smoking, partying, drugs, didn't get a lot of sleep, that's going to have an impact. What I see today in a lot of cases is that the younger generation, and I hate to sound like I'm categorizing, but I guess that's what I'm doing,
Right.
have a tendency to think they are somewhat invincible.
Yeah.
And they can do the, party all night, get a couple of hours of sleep, drink a lot, get a couple hours of sleep, and wake up and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand the long-term impact of that. Can you talk about?
What's interesting is that we are, to some degree, biologically programmed to think that way. The way that your brain develops, again, especially as teenagers take the most risks, right?
Yep.
Is because they're testing the environment. Okay, you can tell them what not to do,
Yeah.
but it won't sink in until I experience it for myself. How many times do you tell a child, don't touch the flame, don't touch the flame? Then they keep trying, then they touch it. Oh, I've learned my lesson. I won't do that again. Again, when you're a teenager, young adult, you want to experience life to its fullest. You want to go out, you want to socialize, you want to experiment with things. Some people are, not as risk averse. Some people are just, more modest in their risk taking, and that just happens. But again, we are biologically programmed to do these type of things, and we just have to learn our lesson early. And then the more we learn our lessons early, the better we are prepared for later on. For smoking, for example, if you quit smoking for about 10 years, then your body starts to kind of restructure itself to go back to a pre-smoking state.
Wow.
Right. But again, because we have so much other pollutants in the air, it's a slower process. You may not get away from everything. You may damage your lungs even more. I mean, in 2020, COVID wiped out a lot of people because of pulmonary disease.
Yeah.
Right. If you drink a lot, for example, and a lot is subjective to some, but again, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to your liver and your kidneys. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you're doing all that in your 20s and 30s, that's 10, 20 years already. By the time you're 65 and you want to slow down, you may have already caused liver damage, and now you're suffering the effects of that. You may have already caused kidney damage, So now you're suffering the effects of that. So now that you want to do good, your body's telling you, oh no, 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 it's too late. What can you do? So what you can do is preserve function, but understand that you're still going to decline. We're all kind of programmed that these things are going to wear down anyway as we get older, right? So you're born with a set number of kidney cells. As you get older, they start to die off naturally. That's the process. And then if you add on diabetes, you add on high blood pressure, you add on any kind of, let's say, genetic kidney issue that you may or may not have that you didn't know about, that just exacerbates the issue also. And I don't want to, give you all the doom and gloom. I mean, there are positives, If you still kind of work out, you still eat right, you still drink plenty of water, you can kind of buffer these effects as you get older too. And it's never really too late to kind of make a change. I'll never not recommend smoking to my adult patients. You've been smoking for 60 years. It's never too late to stop. You preserve the function. I've been drinking for 40 years. It's never too late to stop. Why not get into that rhythm right now? The only time and it's kind of blasphemous for a doctor to say this, but only time I'm really reserved about these type of recommendations is if someone's on hospice and it actually improves their quality of life versus then, take away from the quality of life. If you've been drinking and you like to drink every night at 5 o'clock because it makes you calm, I'm not going to take that away from you because I already know your trajectory, right? Why would I want to make you emotionally miserable? Give you something that you enjoy. I think sometimes too, we as caregivers have a problem with that because we feel that, oh, it's still damaging them. But I mean, they have a terminal illness. What real difference is it going to make, right? And it's also their choice.
Yeah.
So I can't take that away from them.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is DB with the Sullivan Man Podcast. Hey, we really appreciate you guys rocking with us all these months. The feedback has been amazing. We hope to continue to bring you amazing content. We need a huge, huge favor from you though. We need you to like. I think that like button is somewhere right here. We need you to share. I think it's right here maybe. And we need you to subscribe. Come on guys, keep rocking with us and share this content. And we want to reach millions. We appreciate you.
Is there Darren kind of alluded to it earlier, seeing whether or not we're in the age range that you would consider geriatric.
So 65 is the actual cutoff, 65. But if you talk to the folks at AARP, then they start about 55, at least with the benefits. Yeah. So 65 is generally where we start saying people are of geriatric age. In 2011, that's when the majority of baby boomers turned 65, or at least started turning 65. Baby boomers are those who were born between 1946 and 1965. And so they're all turning 65. So since that year, 2011, 10,000 people per day turn 65 or older since then. Wow. So the population demographic tree, when I was in medical school, used to look like a Christmas tree, where you have the younger folks at the bottom and the older folks at the top. So very small number. But these days, it's actually kind of inverting itself. So you have a lot more older folks at the top and fewer children being born. We talk about birth control. We talk about, this, that, and the third, low birth rates and things like that. And because older adults are living longer, you alluded to that also earlier, there are a lot more folks who are 65 and older living now, and even more so 85 plus. So the oldest of the old are also living longer as well. My oldest patient in the VA was 111 years old.
Wow.
Still sharp. He may have been limited functionally, but he was still pretty sharp. And he had a great family support. That also goes a long way to kind of extending longevity as well. The folks in America who have the shortest life expectancy at this time are Native Americans. And you can pretty much understand why a lot of social, political factors going into that. African Americans are in there as well. Hispanics have a slighter edge over us, but then the white men and women also have a longer life expectancy than we do. During COVID was the first time that the life expectancy actually shortened by 2 years.
Wow.
Most recently.
Wow.
A couple of things. I attended a healthcare conference a couple of years ago, and I think they said that for the first time in the history of our country, or maybe the world, but I think it was our country, that the number of Gen Xers are outnumbering the number of millennials and Gen Zs. Just for the simple fact is we're living longer and they aren't procreating as much as we did.
That is true. So a lot of the industrialized nations in the world have the same similar demographics. Japan is actually the oldest population in the world. The U.S. is in there as well. I think the percentage of folks 65 and older in Japan is teetering around 24-25%. In the United States, we're going about 18 to 20% here in the U.S. as well. And the demographic is wide. Majority of our older adults live in America's heartland in the rural areas. It kind of makes sense, right? You live in these towns, you don't go away. The younger folks leave the towns, and then what happens to the town itself? You think about, and not to get too much in politics, but you think about Social Security. If the population tree is inverted, older adults have to work longer, right? Retirement age is also increasing. Younger folks like myself, I used to have a summer job, youth mentoring in the summertime. They don't have a lot of those services now. So older adults taking those jobs as well, out of necessity, right? The housing bubble crashed a lot of people's pension plans. So they have to keep working. It's not that I want to, it's because I need to support myself, right? So there are a lot of factors going on in society these days that kind of limit older adults' ability to live the kind of life that they expected when they retired or as they got older.
Got it.
You said something really interesting as it relates to the environment and how that impacts our health, i.e. pollution, whether it's, cars, buses, you name it. Spent a lot of time over in Asia Pacific. And I remember seeing, again, Japanese, Chinese, you name it, wearing masks 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I never understood it at the time. I mean, these are, huge cities and densely populated, a lot of transportation, cars, buses, you name it. But I never understood it. But when you look at their life expectancy, especially like you said, Japanese, compared to, let's say, your average American, it's a few years longer than what we live. And they seem to be in very, very good shape.
Yeah.
Even the older they get.
Yeah.
And I suspect those masks that they've been wearing for years has a lot to do with that, because they don't get as much pollution as we do and whatnot.
So I would also add that to some degree, I've read somewhere, and I can't get the correct reference, but it's also a more polite society. And so if I'm sick, I don't want to pass it on to someone else. So I'm going to voluntarily wear a mask to limit my exposure to others, right? So there, I went to Japan a couple of years back, and that was one of the first things I noticed. I said, why is everybody wearing a mask? And it was such a simple thing. I mean, you go into some of the stores and there's like bedazzled masks. I think this was maybe 2017 I was there. And it was amazing, even on the train, we're all kind of congested together, and someone's coughing into their mask. I was like, oh, I get it. Thank you very much for that, But again, COVID kind of exposed a lot of us to how we don't care about each other to a certain degree, right? There are people who walk around just coughing into the air, not even using their elbows. And you're like, ugh, what's wrong with you? Didn't somebody teach you better? It's just simple courtesy. And again, the pollution is there. And it's baseline pollution. It's not even, extra. It's just baseline. That's what we're living in, right? So if you live in densely populated areas, or like I gave the example of Harlem, I used to live on 139th and Common Avenue, and we have a park that was built on a sanitation station as a concession, right? So, and then you consider all the bus depots that were in that particular area. It's a wonder why asthma rates are so high, right? It's a wonder why so many people have respiratory issues. Okay? So it is environment is also a huge part of the problem, but at the same time, we want you to go outside. We want you to exercise as much as you can, because kind of all these things go a long way to kind of protect you in the long run also.
Yeah. You all were just talking about Japan. I spent some time there as well, and just wondered how much their health and health conditions centered around diet as well. Because it was so heavy in rice and fish, that in comparison, wanted to ask you about just dangers of sugar and salt that so many of us have overindulged in here in the States.
Yeah. So it's you already give the answer. It's dangerous. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. It attacks the same pleasure center in your brain as these other drugs, and it's wholly addictive. You don't notice it, I've actually tried to cut down on my sugar intake myself. I used to pour like 5 sugars into my cup of tea. Now I'm down to 2. I'm hoping to get down to 0, but you've done this for 48 years of my life. I like the taste. I want to learn something different. I've even cut down on soda cans, right? So instead of the full 12 ounces, now we get the small mini ones, 90 calories by itself.
Right.
One of the main ways to really try to preserve longevity, based on one of those other theories on aging, is caloric restriction, right? Eating only what your body will burn in a typical day, right? So if you think about it, what is the recommended is about 2,000 calories per day, but we all exceed that easy. I mean, if you go to Starbucks in the morning, or let's just take McDonald's in the morning, right? Let's say you get an orange juice. That's 120 on average. Let's just say that, right? Let's say you get a egg McMuffin. That's 600. So that's 720. Okay, that's just breakfast. And then you may want hash browns too. That's another 300. That's 1,000 just for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's say you have a sensible lunch. Let's say you have dinner, a salad. Okay, salads. Let's say 300. Then you're gonna add sunflower seeds. You're gonna add strawberries. You're gonna add blueberries. Great antioxidants. Perfect. But you're adding calories. Then you add the salad dressing, okay, more calories. So let's say your lunch is, and let's not forget the sweet tea. So let's say your lunch is 700, okay?
Right
so
now
you're at 1,700 calories for just breakfast and lunch, okay? And then you're at work, you get that hankering around 2:00. You may get some sugary snack, a donut, or whatever that's lying around. Let's talk about that. Let's say you walk that off from going to the bathroom all day long, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Let's say you work off 100 calories. Not likely, but let's say you walk that off. Okay, so you still have 1,700. Then you come home to dinner. Okay, dinner might be chicken, might be steak, might be shrimp. Random Tuesday might be lobster. Who knows what it is? But dinner is expected to be a lot of calories too, and then you add dessert on top of that. So now, instead of 2,000 calories, you're looking at 4,000 calories for the day. And then it's late because you got home late from work. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not metabolizing. Right. Everything's just building. Unfortunately, I look at it as a math equation. Right. The calories in don't equal the calories burned, and then you store those calories as fat cells, and the fat cells increase in size and they accumulate. And the only way to get rid of fat cells is to actually remove them. When you start losing weight, you're just shrinking the cell, but the pocket is still there and can easily accumulate, right? And then in our high stress modern society, there's a lot of stress. So cortisol and the neuroendocrine system kicks into high gear. Cortisol is only supposed to be for fight or flight, short bursts. But because we're always under stress, it's always pumping, right? So because it's always pumping, you're making more of this visceral fat, this fat that goes around your belly and your waist, that increases the number of hormones you're making more of, which increases cortisol even more. Now your risk for diabetes increases. Then that affects your high blood pressure, and you can see how the cascade goes on and on and on, right? So the best ways to kind of really take control of your life: eat right, drink plenty of water, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of different colored things, right? So not just green, throw in some carrots, throw in some tomatoes, nice vibrant colors, plenty of water, and exercise. I when I explain diabetes to my patients, I always ask the question, have you ever made Kool-Aid in your life? And they look at me kind of funny, like, yeah, I made Kool-Aid. So I said, when the Kool-Aid is too sweet, how do you fix it?
Add water.
That's one. What's another way to fix Kool-Aid that's too sweet? Don't add
sugar.
Don't add sugar. That's 2, right? And what's another way to fix Kool-Aid that's too sweet?
Don't add sugar.
Don't drink it.
Don't drink it. So real simple. So you've just come up with your treatment for diabetes, right? Don't increase your intake of sugar, right? Exercise, you burn off the calories, right? And add water to dilute the sugar that's already in your system, right? It's as simple as that. Let's start with that before we even go to the medications. Do the lifestyle stuff first. And then if you can't manage or you need help, then we'll go to medications, right? And then we'll give you 3 to 6 months to kind of do it on your own, and we'll figure it out. Same thing with blood pressure, right? Same thing. For blood pressure, it's not necessarily sugar, but it's salt, Cut the salt out your diet. Change the Mediterranean diet. Cut out the red meat. Eat more, plant-based proteins, stuff like that. Eat more fish. Okay. And then even the fish, don't eat fried fish all the time because it's the fat stuff. It's the frying all the time. Like I had a patient who said, I only eat fried chicken 3 days a week. I'm like, that's still a bit much. I appreciate you cutting down. I appreciate we'll work on it further, but it's still a lot.
It must be from the South. It can't be native New Yorkers eating fried chicken 3 times a week.
Because I love it. His blood pressure was like, what was it? 184 over like 96. So we were like, man, we really need to work on you because I'm afraid that, again, blood pressure is just the pressure that your blood exerts on your blood vessels, right? High blood pressure just means it's higher than normal, okay? And then the numbers that we go to doctor's office, they show you is just the top number is the actual push when the heart is pumping blood. That's the top number. And when the heart is trying to relax and bring blood back into the heart, that's the bottom number. If your bottom number is too high, guess what happens? There's back pressure. Your body's a well-oiled machine. Yeah. There's back pressure, right? So if there's back pressure in your plumbing, it goes where it's not supposed to. So the blood goes back into your lungs, then goes back into your liver, then goes back into your legs, and that's what causes the swelling, right? You always want to have forward flow of the blood, forward motion, forward motion, forward motion. Once there's too much pressure in the system, it goes backwards, and that's what causes the congestion and all the swelling as well.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. I've never heard it explained quite that way, and definitely have never heard the Kool-Aid analogy.
Yeah.
But simple.
I think that health education is one of the better tools that we don't always have time to kind of give our patients, because I can tell you all the stuff, but if you don't understand it, if you don't buy into it, then you're not going to do what I'm asking you to do for your own health. Right. You're going to go home. I went to the doctor and he said, can you look it up online and tell me what he said? But if you take the time to explain to someone how what they're doing is affecting their life, maybe that'll be the breakthrough that kind of helps them have that aha moment to change.
Right.
It's really easy to prescribe something, but at the same time, medicines have side effects, right? Yeah. So I would rather you kind of try and fix it on your own with diet, exercise. These things take a lot longer, right? But in the long run, they'll last longer for you also. And to preserve you more than taking something else with another side effect. And oftentimes we'll give you one medicine, you develop a side effect to that, and then we give you another medicine to counteract that side effect.
Right.
Wouldn't you rather kind of
give it all up?
Right? Yeah. And get rid of all your medicines altogether?
Yep.
Now there are some times we can't take you off any medicine at all because it may be too late or you really need our help, right? But for the most part, we try our best to start you off without medications, lifestyle modification. And I'll just give you a quick example. One of the best treatments for back pain is physical therapy. The research on that is irrefutable. Almost 95% change in your back pain or improvement in your back pain through physical therapy, first line. But everybody wants medication, right? And some people will give you the medication, some people will give you the narcotics, and then eventually you may or may not get addicted. And then next, that's another problem that we have inadvertently caused because we're trying to help, right? And I'm not saying all back pain will get better with physical therapy, but the usual low back, musculoskeletal type back pain, physical therapy will fix that or help fix that to a better degree than medications by itself. The medicines, all they do is just mask the issue. The issue is function. The issue may be the way you walk. The issue may be, the way you stand up straight, bad posture, things like that. So the physical therapist will kind of teach you how to do things better so you don't repeat and have the same back pain later on. But that takes weeks, right? And who has time for that?
Well, speaking of that, just as you're dealing with people and their aging, how critical is mobility, period? To your point with physical therapy, or I recently did 2 months at a stretch zone for some leg pain that I was and have not had an issue with it since. I never had an issue with it before, but I have not had an issue since. And I just was not using those muscles anymore. So how critical is mobility in
So it's so critical that there's a new kind of, not necessarily new, but a relatively new framework that we're operating from, especially for older adults. It's called the 4 M's. And these are things that are like important to our older adult patients. The M's are pretty much, the first one is what matters most. So you come to see me, hey doc, I have a problem walking, right? So what's your motivation? What's most important for you at this time about this issue with you walking? Well, my daughter's getting married in 8 months or whatever it is. I would really love to walk her down the aisle. So that's a point for me to kind of encourage you to stick with your treatment plan, because that's what matters most to you.
Yep.
What matters most to me is that you get up and walk and do something. But what's going to keep you motivated to do that is the fact that I recognize that you want to walk your daughter down the aisle. So the first time is what matters most to the person, right? Number 2, mentation. We want to always assess your cognition. Are you able to manage yourself inside or outside of your home? Are you forgetful? Do you have dementia? Do you have delirium? Things like that. So mentation is another M. Another M is medication, polypharmacy, right? On average, older adults are on average on 8 different medications. If you're in a nursing home, you may have a list of 20 different things. And my job as a geriatrician is to what we call debride the medication list and cut it down to things that are absolutely necessary for you, somewhat necessary, and things that we can just eliminate altogether. And then other things that we can watch over time and see if we can eliminate them also. So our job is really to kind of debride the medications as much as possible. Again, if you're taking 20 pills a day, that's a lot of pills that you're taking into your gut, and they may sit there, may not dissolve quickly. That may lead to an ulcer or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And you have to kind of think about all the different interactions that this one will have with that one. Take with food, don't take with food. How does that impact your day, right? You taking 10 in the morning and 7 at nighttime before you go to bed, things like that, right? And then one the not necessarily the last, there's also a 5th M, but the last one in this rubric is mobility, right? How much mobility, how much independence does this person have? Do they walk with a walker, a cane, etc.? And how can we get them back to functioning? As you age, you have something called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a natural loss of muscle mass. So that's going to happen anyway, right? So if you're not mobile, you're sedentary, your muscles are going to atrophy or shrink even further, right? So if you're not active, you know, the adage goes, if you don't move it, you don't lose it. It's going to happen. Okay. So even in hospitals, when patients go into the hospital, the first thing that we do, unfortunately, in some instances, is make you lie down, right? Whereas the physical therapist or therapy team should come see you immediately, see how much function you have, and get you moving as soon as possible, so you don't have that extra loss when you come out of the hospital, depending on how long your stay is. Right. And then the 5th M is something we call multimorbidity or multi-complexity. That just recognize that a lot of older adults have multiple medical problems, not just one thing. So you may come in with heart disease, may come in with high blood pressure, diabetes, renal kidney problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to take all those things into consideration and devise a really good treatment plan that takes all those things into consideration as well.
The one thing the one M that I probably noticed the most, and this is going to sound weird, but I have season tickets to North Carolina A&T's football games.
Okay.
And most of the season ticket holders are obviously alumni. You know, some of us have been out of school for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it looks like. And I was telling Chill that last year, I was looking at people our age and younger walking up the stairs at football games.
And they're out of breath.
Out of breath, and man, everybody had a hitch in their giddy up. I'm like
struggling. Yeah. Believe it or not, I did a presentation for an organization in New York, and we were talking about obesity in particular. And an interesting stat that I came across: how do I phrase this? 70% of the denials for armed services applications is due to obesity.
Wow.
It's so bad that obesity is a national security issue. If you can't get people into your armed services, you can't get people into your municipal services, police, firefighters, etc. It's a problem. You know, when I left fellowship and I was applying for a job, I was looking at jobs with the federal government. I was looking at the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, or whatever. And one of the main questions they kept asking was, "How much do you weigh? How tall are you? How much do you weigh? How tall are you?" I was like,
Mhm.
"Why do they keep asking again?" Because they want to make sure that because they're going to be like PT requirements. They want to make sure that you're going to meet the bill. Even flight surgeons, you have to have a certain height and a certain weight, right? That's a criteria in order to be a flight surgeon. So yeah, obesity in America or actually across the world is a huge problem. No pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you mentioned as well mentation,
Hmm.
uh, and that related to cognitive care.
Right.
Can you talk about that a bit as Darren and I both have friends and family who are caring for, we haven't quite gotten to the caregivers yet, but friends and family who are caring for folks with dementia,
Hmm.
Alzheimer's, and even could you offer an explanation of what the difference is of even those two
Okay.
things?
So in the continuum of life, again, just the if you go back to the car analogy, as you get older, everything in your body kind of wears down.
Yeah.
One of the things you may notice is that you will start losing neurons or brain cells naturally. Okay, the myelin, which is the kind of the insulation around the neurons, will thin, so the signal doesn't go across that fast.
Mm,
So what you're going to notice naturally, or as a normal part of aging, is slow reaction time.
mhm.
Right, slow reaction time. Your reflexes are not as sharp. Things like that. You may start noticing you're forgetting little things here and there. Oh, I went into that room. Oh, why am I in this room in the first place? Oh, and then it comes back. Or
Yeah.
you may, forget your glass on top of your head. You're looking for your glasses. Those things are normal. Those things are things that you notice yourself, and you bring it up to your doctor. Hey, doctor, I'm notice I'm forgetting a few things here and there. That's normal. That's almost the realm of is is the bigger umbrella
Mhm.
for neurocognitive disorders that impact both your memory and your function. So dementia is two things: memory and how it impacts your function. Okay. And I'll give you the four main types. Number one would be, let's say, vascular dementia. Vascular dementia is when you have, let's say, a stroke or something like that, or you have recurrent seizures. So you're functioning. Let's say, let's just use numbers. You're functioning at 100%. Okay, then you have this stroke. Then your mentation drops 10%. So now you function 90%. So that's your new baseline.
Mhm.
Right? You're operating 90% of your brain strength, the brain capacity, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
You have another stroke. Now you're functioning at 60%. So your memory deficits are increasing in addition to the physical impairments that you may or may not have, the hemiparesis, the numbness, tingling, the contracture, etc. Right? So we use terms like ADLs, activities of daily living. Those
Mhm.
things are like toileting, transferring out of bed to chair, feeding yourself.
Mhm.
What am I forgetting? Bathing yourself and also dressing yourself. Okay,
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
are important. Those are things that allow you to live inside your house by yourself.
Yeah.
Then we talk about IADLs, instrumental activities of daily living. Those are things like balancing a checkbook, paying your bills on time, cleaning your house, preparing the food, which is different from feeding yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, feeding yourself is the actual pick up a spoon, feed yourself, as opposed to preparing your food, going to a grocery store, buying it, bringing it home, chopping up the onions, and going through those type of steps.
Yeah.
Right. So you lose technically you lose IADLs first. You lose your ability to operate in the community first,
Mhm.
and then within ADLs you lose your lower extremity strength before you lose your upper extremity strength. So that's kind of like a hierarchy. The
Mhm.
thing about ADLs is that you can rehab those with therapy. Okay.
Okay.
So dementia is memory loss plus function. So that's
Yeah.
vascular dementia. The second will be Lewy body dementia. Lewy body dementia looks like Parkinson's. Okay, you
Mhm.
have a change in your brain chemistry, and you have these things called Negri bodies that form inside, and it just alter the chemistry inside your brain. So you may
Mhm.
have the stone face,
Mhm.
you may have the shuffling gait as well,
Mhm.
you may have the hallucinations, but it's also memory loss plus loss of function. Okay.
Got it.
Then you have frontotemporal dementia. Frontotemporal dementia happens in younger folks, typically 40s, late 40s, early 50s, right?
Wow.
It's a complete personality change. So an example would be, let's say, a professor who's always comes in with a bow tie. Then next thing you know, he's slovenly, he's talking out of his mind, and he's hypersexual, hyperoral. Okay, but he still has the strength of a youth, a young person. So you have to be very careful of that person. But their cognition is impaired as well. So again, memory, function, and then lastly is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is, again, the change in brain chemistry. All of these involve change in brain chemistry, obviously, but the classic is what we call neurofibrillary tangles, which is where the the cells of the brain form these kind of jumbles, like a ball of yarn, pretty much, in certain areas. And then you can also have beta sheets. So if let's say the structure is parallel to each other, now they become perpendicular and they cross-link. So again, the neurotransmitters don't go where they're supposed to, and you can't make these connections. And then there's a break in your ability to make new memories and store those same memories. So that's why your long-term memory is preserved, but you can't make new memories, so your short-term memory is kaput. Okay, so that's really the problem. Alzheimer's has about a 10-year course from diagnosis to death. It's about 10 years. The medication that's out there right now, what it does, just if the slope is this way, 10 years, it just changes the slope slightly to prolong the time.
A bit longer.
Right. There's really no cure for Alzheimer's right now. There are a lot of new experimental drugs coming out, so it's really an exciting field. One of the ones that was most promising was about 2 years ago. But what we noticed too is that even though it changes the structure of the brain back, it doesn't improve cognition. So it's more like you're just putting candy paint, doing a paint job versus actually fixing the issue. So then you start having these kind of metaphysical conversations with yourself. You know, is memory the soul, and is the soul broken? You know, because I fixed the brain, but the memory is still not there. It's not intact. The cognition is not there. You know.
Got it.
And it's hard. I think it's very hard on caregivers because, again, here's your mother or your father or your uncle, your sister, your brother, whoever it is, and they've always been the strongest person in the family, etc. And now they have all these simple things they can't do. So we as the caregivers have this high expectation that they're not meeting, and that causes oftentimes friction because we're not patient. One of the things I've done in my career is I went to a San Antonio VA, and they have a Alzheimer's dementia simulation program, and it was debilitating. I mean, you're I don't want to give it away too much, but it's like it simulates someone who has dementia. And I've tied a tie all my life. Well, not all my life, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it. I couldn't do it.
Wow.
I couldn't do it.
Wow.
It got to the point where there was instructions about, you're looking through a bucket and you have to find red shoelaces. I was so confused. I couldn't get the shoelaces. But I remember that my own shoes that day happened to have burgundy shoelaces on. So here I am trying to tie my shoelaces. And the examiner's like, what are you doing?
Wow.
What are you doing? That's not part of that's not even part of the program. But I said, but it said to the voice said to tie your shoelaces. My shoelaces are already tied, so I'm already tying. And he's like, no, we were talking about the red shoelaces in the bin. You know, so I was so confused. One other participant, he broke down crying because he recognized that he's a social worker. He recognized that his grandfather, who he oftentimes takes care of, how much pressure he was putting on his grandfather because he didn't realize how debilitating this is.
Wow.
Simple things, putting on a shirt, forgetting to eat, forgetting to drink. I mean, these are simple things.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've had in my career, and it gives me a more sensitivity for those going through those problems. I'm a lot more patient, and I spend a lot of time counseling the caregivers about the limitation, and also doing what we call anticipatory guidance. These are some of the things that you may notice. These are some of the things you may experience. It's not them. It's the disease. They may not know your name. It's not them. It's the disease. Right.
Right.
Not know your daughter's name. Don't blame them. It's a disease. Right? I'll give you another example. Another patient, at 5 o'clock every day, she would sit by the window and play with her cat. Right. And the family was really upset. And this would cause friction between the family and the patient. And I'm like, is the cat bothering anyone? They're like, no. So then why don't you just let her have the cat?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they left her alone, let her have the cat. After 3 weeks, they came back. I said, how's everything going? They said, oh, everything's fine now. Actually, as a matter of fact, we haven't had the same behavioral issues. We haven't had the same outbursts. She's not trying to hit us anymore. And I said, was that so bad?
Yeah.
The cat's not real. It's a hallucination.
Right. Right.
She's
Right.
hallucinating the cat. So you're trying to fix a problem that she doesn't think she has.
Right.
If it's not hurting her, then why are you trying to fix it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Simple things like that.
In the process, in something that difficult, and again, Darren and I both know families where this is there. He lost his father pretty suddenly. I lost my father pretty suddenly. And I see families with folks who are going through caring for family members, loved ones with severe cognitive issues.
Right.
How do you keep the caregivers healthy? Because I've also seen them caring so much and so hard for that they get sick themselves.
And a lot of times, in particular in our community, I hate to say this, but it is not caregiver by committee. It's typically one sibling or person who's actually been the caregiver while the others kind of run around and living their lives as usual.
Right. And I've seen all of that. Again, if you look at the past, parents used to have more than one child. And then sometimes even one child was designated the caregiver and everyone else supported that person. Right. These days, we don't have that many options. Right. And we're so spread apart that sometimes one person becomes the de facto caregiver. I subscribe to the airline industry's adage, when there's sudden loss of cabin pressure, please put your mask on before you put someone else's on. If you pass out, you can't help anybody else. To the best of your ability, take care of yourself, right? Caregivers are more prone to having severe health issues, severe depression. They also experience isolation because they can't go outside because they're always taking care of the family member, especially in Alzheimer's and dementia. It's a 24-hour job. And people don't understand that. Oh, why can't you just leave mom at home for 10 minutes or whatever it is? Go to the store, come back. Because she might turn on the stove. Because she might wander. She might do X, Y, and Z. I can't even sleep at night because I'm afraid there's going to open the door and walk away. One thing that's preserved in dementia is your semantic memory. Semantic memory is like muscle memory, right? That's why people can get in the cars, start the car, drive off, but then forget to come back. Right? Or forget the route back home. The muscle memory, tying your shoelaces, put on your shirt, get in the car, key in ignition, put it into park or put it into gear, that's cemented. But remembering the route back is the problem. Right? So caregivers, if you're able to take advantage of any respite programs, respite's important. They can come either to your house or take your family member to a place, and you can have up to 7 days to yourself. And you can decompress. If you have friends that can come visit, that's great. Church is important. The sick and shut-ins, that's important. If you can take your family member out, and if it's okay and they don't mind doing this, go out for a walk. Enjoy the environment. Also, don't just stay secluded inside the house. But the one thing I would stress is, try as best as you can to take care of your health. And I know that's easy for me to say, but it's very, very difficult. Especially if you don't have support from other people. And then sometimes these same caregivers, with reason, may become resentful of other family members, right? You're over there telling me what I am or I'm not doing for mom or dad, but you're not even here to help me, right? And then when something happens and they end up in the hospital, now you're blaming me for all of this. Meanwhile, I've been doing this for the last 10, 15 years. Where have you been? You don't even send money. Right? You don't even come visit. You don't even call like you're supposed to, So I've heard a lot of these different things. Right? And sometimes when people at the last straw, that's when they put their family member in a nursing home. And then we have guilt about doing that too. We have. It's interesting for us, right? We take pride in taking care of our elders, take pride in taking care of our parents, but at the same time, it's hurting us. And then we feel guilty when we put them in an environment that may help them out even more.
Right. Let me ask you a quick question on that, and we'll start kind of moving to wrap it up.
Mhm.
For those aging patients who, from a cognitive standpoint, they're okay, but it is time maybe to move to a nursing home situation. How important is that interaction? It is not to have them isolated. How important are the visits? How important is the human
Oh,
contact?
gosh. It's vitally important. I mean, COVID taught us that. You know, how many increases in depression and isolation and feelings of loneliness did we see?
Yeah.
You know, many people die from that than the actual disease itself. Well, let me rephrase. A lot of people die from that.
Yeah.
The disease killed a lot more, but even so, that impacted even families. Right? You can only stand outside the nursing home with your hands pressed up against the glass. There's something about human touch. Like, we need to touch each other. We're built that way, right? So it's important. I think that, you know, it's even another anecdote. You know, hearing and vision, right, also play a role in cognition and dementia. If you can't see, that's a loss of one sensory input. If you can't hear, that's a loss of another sensory input. We had a gentleman who was 92 or so years of age. He was on the unit at the VA, and he was always isolating. We did an eye exam. We got him some glasses. He can watch TV in the day room with everyone else. We looked inside his ears. He had some wax. We took the wax out. And then we got him what's called a pocket talker to kind of raise the ambient noise around him, almost like a hearing aid. Next thing you know, this guy is in the day room, interact with everyone. Everyone wants to talk to somebody else. We don't want to sit by ourselves.
Right.
So it's vitally important. All these things are important. So the simple things that, you know, we often forget about are often the right answer. You know, get your eyes checked, get your hearing checked, you know, stuff like that. You know, walk. If you can't, the guidelines literally say for older adults, do something. In a younger person, we say, you know, 150 minutes of vigorous exercise, and there's all these criteria. But older adults, do something. Get up, walk around, do something, because it's important. You want to get the blood flowing. Another word about, you know, dementia in particular, they say that, you know, Alzheimer's is the #1 cause of dementia. I would even say that vascular dementia may be #1, because how many people have high blood pressure? How many people have diabetes? Diabetes is actually encroaching on being like, what do they call it? Dementia 3 or something like that, because it's all inflammation. The inflammation is also changing the cellular structure of your brain. And so because there's so much inflammation, you have vascular issues, vascular insults. The same way diabetes affects your small blood vessels in your fingers and your toes, also affects your big brain, right? So diabetes is also a huge driver of the number of patients with dementia in this country. So again, control the sugars.
Good. That's good stuff. D, you got something else?
I'm pouring out my sweet tea. I'm not even going to finish it. I'm looking at this cup like I'm not drinking this.
Listen. Let me not take that away from you. So moderation is key. Let me leave you with that. Moderation is key. Even for my athletes, I tell them, if you're gonna drink one Gatorade, at least drink 2 bottles of water with it, right? Because you just can't live on that by itself. So moderation is key. If you want to drink the sweet tea, it's fine, but just make sure you're always drinking water also. Don't let that be your only drink that you drink all the time.
I do drink a lot of water, so I'm good there.
Very good. And then, you know, the question is always, how much water is enough water? Drink enough water so that your urine is clear when you wake up in the morning, consistently. That's how you know you're well hydrated.
I've got a ways to go with that one.
We try. All we can do is our best.
Yeah, got it. Well, man, this has been beyond insightful.
Yes.
And we thank you for this, as we are encouraging our followers and encouraging ourselves and encouraging each other to try and live beyond this life expectancy of Black men here in America. And you've given us some great insight on how to do that. And for many of us in our age bracket, where we've started caring for elderly parents, some good insight as well on.
I almost forgot. I'm sorry to cut you off. The Alzheimer's Association If you Google the Alzheimer's Association, the 800 number, they are a fabulous resource for folks dealing with the Alzheimer's or dementia in general. They have a 24-hour hotline number. And if you call them, you give them your zip code or your area, they will find your resources within your local area.
That's great.
And then each municipality should have a Department of Aging or a Council on Aging or something to that effect in your area as well. The states usually have an office that deals with aging issues. So those are great resources.
That's great. That's great. We missed one thing at the beginning of this session, and we're going to wrap this up with giving you the floor again. Any last words that you have, but also give us some insight on your family dynamic. Your beautiful wife, two beautiful daughters, and you're also an author.
So I am married. We just celebrated 11 years last month, so that was exciting. We have two girls. They are 7 and 9. They both are running track. They run the 800, the 400, the 200, the 100, the 55, and both do long jump. So it's a joy. It's a joy to watch them be active, and that gets us outside and active also. So it's almost by force. So we're all doing it together.
Right.
I did write a children's book. When my daughter was the youngest was 6 months. We were in New Orleans and she was crying and I was by myself. So I started singing this silly song that worked. It quieted her down. So I turned it into a small children's book called In the City. And I was able to read it to her class when she turned 2. So that was really, really special, really nice. I'm currently the medical director for a PACE program in Baltimore. PACE stands for a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. And we are a one-stop shop for older adult care. We have all the specialties, and in our system, we have a dietitian, a therapist, PT, OT, social worker, all under one roof. So we literally can walk down the hall and speak to someone with other expertise as we need, including a dietitian. And we're also the insurance company for the patients too. So there are PACE programs across the country, and typically those who are 55 and older live in the prescribed zip codes, are safe to live in the community, and also I'm forgetting everything tonight. Safe to live in the community and live within the zip code, you may qualify for PACE. So if you have an older adult that you think could benefit, check it out. But it's a labor of love. I do enjoy it. Again, I don't think we pay enough attention to our older adults or our seniors. So this is why I do this.
Good.
Fantastic. We need you. We need more like you. And our seniors have given us so much. Our elders have given us so much in their lives. And we talk often about as our parents age and grandparents age, the children become the parents, and the parents truly do in many cases become the children. And you know what? For what they've done for us, we owe that back to them. So we thank you for helping them in the twilight of their years. And you're a young man. You may be helping me in the twilight of my years.
Anytime, just give me a call.
All right, you got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a bunch.
Aaron, you want to take us out?
Yeah, so guys, this has been the Sullivan Man Podcast. Thank you for watching this evening, and see you on the next episode.